Okay, so today we're going to dive into something that might just flip everything you think you know about survival, about intelligence, and honestly, maybe even the universe itself. We're looking at a system that acts less like a machine and more like a living, breathing information engine, and it's all built on one single, really radical idea. And this is that idea right here. We all have this instinct that survival means holding on, preserving whatever works at all costs. But what if that's completely backward? What if real long-term resilience isn't found in any particular structure, but in the system's gutsy ability to let that structure die and just begin again? And that gets us to the central problem, the big illusion that so many of our systems are built on, the lie of permanence. We have this deep, almost religious belief that success means finding that one perfect, final state and then freezing it forever. You see this obsession everywhere. I mean, think about a large language model. What do? We train it and train it on a giant pile of data until it converges, until it's as good as it can get. Then we freeze it. We lock in the weights and we ship it, basically praying that the world it was trained on never, ever changes. It's brilliant, but it's also incredibly fragile. And this quote just nails the fundamental flaw in that whole approach. See, entropy, that universal tendency towards disorder, it doesn't really care about things that are adapting and changing. That's just part of the flow. What entropy loves is a target. And anything that stands still, that gets rigid and refuses to change, well, it paints a giant bullseye on its own back. It becomes a monument just waiting to crumble. So if building rigid, permanent systems is basically a death sentence, what's the alternative? Well, you need a totally different kind of system, one that doesn't just put up with change, but is literally built out of change. A system where the rules aren't laws written in stone, but are more like constant, ongoing negotiations. On the one hand, you have your classic systems, like Conway's Game of Life. They're cool, for sure, but they're basically toy universes where little cells just blindly follow a fixed set of rules. But on the other hand, you have this new beast, the Entropic Contextual Automaton, or ECA. Here, the rules are always adapting. The cells don't just obey, they negotiate. And memory? It's not stored somewhere, it's baked into the very shape of the system. And here's the absolute kicker. In the ECA, there are no top-down orders. At every single tick of the clock, each cell is making its own decision. It's asking itself, okay, given the pressure I'm feeling from my neighbors and my own need to hold on to my information, what is the best possible move I can make right now? The rules aren't imposed, they emerge from millions of these tiny local deals being made all at once. So think about what that means. Every cell is an active player in the game. It's not some mindless pawn following a script. No, it's a tiny little engine that's constantly running its own calculations, trying to figure out the best strategy to keep its own information intact. It's actively choosing how to behave, not just passively following orders. And here's where it gets really amazing. When you let a system like this just run, it doesn't just create random noise or boring static patterns. It naturally and beautifully falls into a powerful, repeating cycle of creation and destruction. It has a life cycle. Let's break down what that actually looks like. Okay, so it all kicks off with coherence. This is where rules start to align and stable, complex structures pop out of the chaos. Then comes exploitation. Those structures work, so they thrive. They get really good and efficient at what they do. But that success leads to phase 3, rigidity. The system gets overspecialized, inflexible, and fragile. And that makes it the perfect target for collapse, when entropy finally breaks through and shatters the structure. But, and this is so important, it's not the end. The broken pieces then reseed the whole environment, and the cycle starts all over again, only this time from a more evolved, more experienced starting point. And folks, this right here is the biggest, most mind-bending takeaway from the ECA. We are all programmed to see collapse as the ultimate failure, the end of the line. But in this model, collapse is a vital, productive, and absolutely necessary feature. It's not a bug. It's a strategy for survival. So let's really dig into this, because it's a total game changer. Why on earth is letting go more powerful than holding on? Why is this planned demolition actually the secret to surviving in the long run? Well, think of a forest fire. To us, it looks like pure chaos and destruction, right? It's burning down these huge, successful, beautiful trees. But what is it really doing? It's unlocking all the nutrients that were trapped in dead wood. It's clearing out the choking undergrowth. It's making way for new life. That fire isn't the enemy of the forest, it's the very mechanism that keeps the forest healthy and alive over thousands of years. Collapse isn't an accident, it's a scheduled reset. And this exact same principle applies to intelligence itself. A mind, whether it's human or artificial, that can't let go of its old ideas, that can't, in a way, burn down its own assumptions from time to time, it doesn't stay intelligent. It hardens. It calcifies into dogma, into superstition. It becomes a world-class expert on a world that doesn't exist anymore. So let's bring it all back to AI. The models we're building now, they're brilliant, but you could say they're terminally confident. They represent an intelligence without seasons. It's like a perpetual summer of peak performance. The ECA, on the other hand, shows us an intelligence that understands and embraces the full cycle. It knows winter is coming. It actually has the ability to forget on purpose, to sacrifice old, outdated rules in order to grow stronger. It's the difference between an intelligence that's terrified of winter and one that knows how to use it. So where does all this leave us? What's the core philosophy we should be taking away from this whole thing? It's that the hero of this story isn't a single perfect structure. It's not some genius rule. The real hero is the cycle itself. And this, really, is the ultimate lesson. The struggle against entropy isn't a war you can win with one brilliant strategy. It's not about building a fortress that can last forever. Survival is a rhythm. It's about mastering the tempo of growth and decay, of building up and then bravely letting go. You don't defeat entropy. You learn to dance with it. So, with this new lens, we can make a kind of declaration. First, we reject permanence as a goal. The ambition to create something that lasts forever, it's a trap. Second, we reject the idea that intelligence is about finding one final correct answer and then stopping. Real intelligence never stops. It just keeps exploring. And finally, the most radical idea of them all. We affirm that collapse is not the opposite of survival. Collapse is a core mechanism of survival. It's the harsh but absolutely necessary tool that guarantees renewal. Because in the end, nothing lasts. Not the organism, not the empire, not the AI model. Every single form is temporary. The only thing that truly endures, the only thing that could cheat entropy over cosmic timescales, is the elegant, brutal, and beautiful ability to begin again. And that leaves us with one last thought to chew on. We're so used to seeing chaos, collapse, and failure as mistakes, as noise in the signal of progress. But what if we've got it all wrong? What if chaos isn't an enemy to be defeated, but simply a season to be weathered, understood, and ultimately used?